Hello and welcome to the 3T RPG podcast. My name is Harrison Hunt and with me is Nick Lamley.
Where am I?
And of course, James Clark. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, but before we begin, I'd like to thank those people who donate at patreon.com/3TRPG podcast, and they donate at the Dreadlord and Devil King levels. That is Ace B, Julian Burnick, Ryan Wahab and Jason Duncan. Thank you for being part of the Dark Army and for living your darkest, dankest life.
Darkest, dankest dreams.
We've got some great segments coming up for you guys today, and let me tell you, it's going to be pretty much the same format as always. So I've got really nothing to add there.
Wow, exciting stuff there.
Well, we're going to do feedback. We've got the news segment, RPG news. We got what you've been slaying, and we got the main subject, which is going to be: was Gary Gygax actually a good game designer?
Ooh.
Followed by your electro letters. Shall we do a back feed?
Yes. Back feed. Is that like when you let food roll down your back so someone else can eat it at the bottom?
That's right.
That's a back feed. Sorry.
That's what we're going to do now. I don't know what's going on. Right, feedback.
The feedback side. The feedback side. Yes, bitch, the feedback side. It's the feedback section.
Yeah, we take your comments and read them out. Yeah, feedback, bitch. So, the first one comes in from David Porter. He says, "Hello again, I had some feedback on episode 60, the Indiana Jones RPG. I remember my friend owning the indie RPG in middle school, and it didn't take long for us to come to the same conclusions as you guys did when it came to how bad the game was structured. But I never realised that there was a way to create your own characters, so I took your advice and looked up the Judge's Survival Guide online. I should point out at this point, never take our advice. There was that guy that had quite a serious accident because of our advice, and yep, we got sued. So, he continues and says, there was a surprising amount of really good stuff in the book with solid and robust random adventure building tables that goes toe-to-toe with the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide. One part of the book I was surprised that you hadn't mentioned in your review was the list of combat statistics for animals, because it's both extensive and wacky in equal measure. Eagles and hawks are considered the same animal stat-wise as are rhinos and elephants, but the magpie and the crow have been specifically deemed worthy for being statted separately. I never realised that magpies were such a common threat in the pulp genre, or that their combat manoeuvres are so unique that the other animals on the list just wouldn't do. There is also an entry for geese, which fills me with unadulterated joy. Geese are notorious arseholes, and more games should feature them as antagonists. I'm one of those people that thinks there shouldn't be an Indy 5 movie, but Indiana Jones and the Belligerent Goose might get my arse in the seat. That said, I really enjoyed the episode and the podcast in general." Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in Indiana Jones, mundane animals are a threat, right? Because he dislikes snakes. So what if you made your own unique character and he's like, why did it have to be geese? You know, I think I must have just missed that section in the book, because I thought quite thorough, but I must have missed the old section about the geese. Now, the next one comes in from a Redditor who is called King of Creepers.
Oh, nice. That's a classic Reddit name.
He's the king of them, Nick.
King of the Creeps.
If there's a bush outside a school, he's in it.
Oh, my God.
Well, that's not my words, that's his words. He told me. Anyway, this is the weirdest feedback we've ever had, right? Because I posted our last episode all about conversions and stuff like that. I posted it onto an OSR group, because obviously I talked about converting it to an OSR system. And this was his response. Very nice. I prefer swords and wizardry. With my swords and wizardry universe I'm working on, I can dump anything into the game. Swords and wizardry white box. Swords and wizardry ruins of Arduin. Swords and wizardry white box gothic. Swords and wizardry, I can't even say it anymore, ruins of Ronin. Skyscrapers and sorcery, white lies, 6-shooters and wagons, white box zombies, swords and wizardry, white star. Are you alright, King of Creepers? Are you mentally challenged?
He should change his name to King of Catalogs.
Yeah, that's it. I think he might work for swords and wizardry.
I was going to say, I think he does.
Because all he does is just rattle off every setting available for the system. I'm going to start doing that on the... I mean, you know how much I dislike this official Savage Worlds Facebook group. I'm going to start going on there and just posting, yes, I like this very much, but I also like Deadlands, Rippers, ETU, Savage Ghostbusters, and just list them off. It's really weird. The weird thing is that also King of Creepers, he's like sort of double spaced one of the lines. So White Star, Star Sailors, it's like that's the main event. I don't know what the fuck this guy is on, but I want a bit.
Yeah.
White Star, Star Sailors.
Yeah. I don't know what actually that is. I know quite a lot of these are like, OSR settings, but it's... yeah, well, thanks for sending us that weird list, King of Creepers, and...
keep creeping.
Keep on creeping.
Keep on creeping, brother.
Keep on creeping, brother. Should we, I don't know about you, but I'm hungry for some news.
Oh, starving.
Oh, yeah, news punch. Hellboy RPG announced.
All right.
I was hoping that would get like a reaction from you guys where you'd be like, wow. Are you not big Hellboy fans?
I like Hellboy, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But it's, don't get me wrong, so what is it? Do you get to play Hellboy?
Well, whether or not you get to play Hellboying is up for debate at the moment. But anyway, the project is going to be headed up by Mark Langworthy, and I'll forgive you if you don't know that guy's name because I didn't. But he was the lead on Judge Dredd and the Worlds of 2000 AD.
Oh, decent, man.
So we know he can do good work.
Oh yeah.
It's being published by Red Scar. Don't know who the fuck they are, but they made a game called Devil's Run, which is a post-apocalyptic game. That seems to be their biggest thing at the moment. But this Hellboy RPG is coming to Kickstarter later this year. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the one thing I was a bit disappointed with, because I guess what you do is you play BRPD. Is it BPRD? I can't remember, but the organisation Hellboy works for. I guess you play those types of people.
Yeah.
But it's going to use the D&D 5e rule set, which is a bit disappointing.
Why?
Well, I don't know. So it's going to be kind of a mod of that. And as much as I like 5e, it's a good fucking game. I think it's very suited to what it does. You know, Hellboy I don't see as a dungeon crawling type thing. So yeah, a bit annoying, but pretty cool. We're getting a Hellboy RPG, an official one, finally.
Cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
I will say this though, there is a Savage Worlds version of it out, so
Of course there is.
yeah. So just if you want Hellboy and you can't be bothered to wait, then just get that. But yeah, they're going to be releasing some quick start rules as well very soon. But the next bit of news, the Ennies just happened and the winners were announced. I won't go through all of them, but Mork Borg did basically a clean sweep, winning almost every award except for shittest game because it got goodest game. But no, for seriously, Morkborg won Best Layout, Best Writing, Best Game, Silver, and Product of the Year. For those that don't know what this is...
absolutely cleared up, didn't it?
I mean, it got all the good ones as well. I mean, the thing is, if some games that won, best typeface or nicest pair of dice or something. I mean, those are the ones nobody cares about. But then you get this one; it won all the fucking good ones. And this is a fantasy game. It's a game, a very very light game. It's more of a setting, and it's inspired by doom metal, so it's just dripping with misery, and it's really quite cool actually. But yeah, it basically did a clean sweep, and I can see why. It is a beautiful beautiful book. I need to get it, but it is quite thin and it is 30 quid. Ooh, so that's why I've been sort of holding off on getting it, and I know it's the quality that counts.
Yeah, but it doesn't really sound worth it.
But yeah, people often talk about how it's the quality over quantity, right? But then the thing is, if somebody released a one-page RPG but it was really nice and printed on solid gold, I don't think I'd buy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Diana Jones was also happened. Well, that wasn't a sentence, was it? But it did happen. And this year, basically what they did is they awarded the Diana Jones Award to Black Excellence in Gaming. On the list, there was a lot of people that I haven't heard of, but that's because I'm an uneducated idiot. But of course, the one that everyone knows is Mike Pondsmith, who was responsible for Cyberpunk 2020. Who was on the list. Yeah, I mean that game is crap, but the thing is he also did Mechton, which is a really good game. So he's been in the industry for years and years, and he's also been consulted on the new Cyberpunk video game as well, and obviously made Cyberpunk Red, which is coming out soon, which is the new version of Cyberpunk, and hopefully it'll be improved. But still, yeah, black excellence in gaming. Well done, James. If there's ever a Filipino excellence in gaming.
Me.
I think you might.
You want
exactly.
it. He wants it.
But is James excellent, Nick? That's the problem.
Well, yeah.
He's all right.
He's all right.
It's like Filipino averageness in gaming. You might win, but excellence, I'm not sure.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
So, the final bit of news today: Nerds International is over.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
James. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that happens towards the end that I don't really want to get into. That was both funny and also awkward. But here's what I'll say: the thing is about Nerds International, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have had an audience for this show to begin with at all.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
They really, really helped us in the early days, and we got to meet a really fine bunch of guys, especially Jamie Pearson, who ran the network, Eric Lamoureux, who invited us on the Wild Die podcast and who helped run things over there as well. And of course, Gary McCallum, who is part of the Nerds International, he sent us things to review. I mean, but a lot of our early episodes were because of him sending us stuff, do you know what I mean? And our videos online. So
loads of nice sweets.
To tell you the truth, though, a lot of people were leaving the network and there wasn't much good stuff left. You know, when it came to shouting out other shows on the network, all we really had was the Murder Hobo show left, which is amazing, and I think everyone should go and listen to it. Yeah, I mean, the Wild Die is still going as well. That's pretty good, so go and give that a listen. Absolutely. But Nerds International is over, but we'd like to say sincere thank you to them for helping us out in the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah. Totally.
It was a really good network community while it lasted.
Yeah, exactly, while it lasted. But then, unfortunately, you know, I might cut this bit out, but unfortunately, it sort of got into a bit cliquey, and the Genesis guys felt hard done by all the time because everyone mocked them for liking Genesis, and then it got into actual argument territory, and oh god,
everyone turned into a bitch.
Stop
They really did.
Oh well, I don't know.
Well, that's a fact. That's a fact.
It is a fact, but we'll cut that. Yeah. All right, but that is it for news. That's your news punch. That's your news punch. Quick and to the point.
To the face.
My wife suggested a new jingle this morning, and listeners, just don't get angry, but because she is a bit weird. But what she suggested for the news punch jingle was that she suggested she would be like a female voice, and she would come on and be like, can I have the news? And then I would pretend to be a bloke, like a really angry northern bloke, and go, here's your fucking news, and then put in a punch sound effect. And I was like, I don't think that's really going to fly. We'll probably get a lot of complaints. So we'll stick with the one we got.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about what we've been playing in What You Slayin'. And have one of these. Oi, yeah. What you slayin'? So Destiny, Cypher. No, start that again. Yeah, we've been playing Destiny, based on the video game using the Cypher system. Nick's been GMing it.
Oh yeah,
and it finally ended with a final episode, and it was amazing. Nick, do you want to run us through what the final episode was all about?
Yeah, so we had a giant showdown. Basically, the tower was under attack from the Vex. They started slipping through a pan-dimensional portal, or bunch of portals actually, and and there was these huge hydras. For people who know Destiny, they know that these giant machines that float along, and they started destroying the city. And you guys had to take to your ships and basically head off the onslaught. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely fantastic. We had what do we call it? Integration, wasn't it? So you, so Harris's character Percival, he hacked one of these giant hydras and started like having this kind of metaspace battle with it. James attacked the other giant one and managed to pull part of its hive mind into a crystal. And it was fantastic.
The moves were insane, and to put it into perspective, right? The tower is like our main base, and it is a tower, and we're all on the top of it. Below it, we can see like these whole cities, and the big things that we were fighting. There were 4 of them, and they were like Godzilla sized, and the mini ones were sort of on the tower, like killing people.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. But the thing where I hacked one of the big ones, right? So my character, he's like kind of chaotic, good type, and he flew on top of it, plunged his hands in, and then when the wires wrapped around he began to hack it. He's a robot, by the way, which is important. I said that was like a really, really anime move to do, and I remember now where I got that move from. It's not a reference that would mean much to you guys, I don't think, but on Metal Gear Solid 3, I don't know what happened to my voice then. There's a bit where you're fighting, a really early version of Metal Gear, and one of the one of the bosses stands on top of it and then does that. He's this guy that has can conduct electricity through his body. So that is where I got it from. I realise now.
Nice.
But yeah, it was so awesome, and it was just this epic thing, like, because it wasn't like just a battle where we just were constantly like, right, you're fighting this, you roll to hit, you roll to hit. It was like it was this mad panic where craziness and destruction was happening all around us, and we were just trying to do our best, and it was fucking amazing.
Yeah,
what I liked was ridiculous. That the night before, all of our characters had gone to the pub, including our leader, Savala. So he was really hungover, and so was I. So we were flying towards one of these giant Vex that were destroying the city, and I crashed my ship into the city below beforehand to get us a pair of kebabs, and then flew it up to him.
So
and then me and him were fighting side by side.
That was so cool.
It was fucking crazy.
When you were sharing a ship and eating a kebab, yeah. But no, it was fantastic.
It was fucking awesome.
And the guys were absolutely great. You saved it, didn't you? Saved the city.
Yeah.
We did, and the cool thing is me and James, our whole storyline got wrapped up in the end as well, because we were trying to figure out...
Yeah, the entire thing.
Exos, who were the robots in Destiny, they don't know where they came from. And Nick, I don't know if it was an official Destiny explanation, but he came up with this cool thing where we found out that we were the Vex once. We were the things that were attacking the city.
Yeah.
So we had this sort of moral dilemma, as if we side with the people that we are or the people that we've signed up to protect. It was pretty fucking awesome. So was that you?
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was really well portrayed.
Was that your invention, Nick?
I can't remember it. I can't remember if I'm misremembering that they were from the Vex, or whether that was from. Or I'm sure I've got a funny feeling that there's somewhere in the lore that it says that, but I can't remember if I've just remembered that or misremembered that. But so pass, I have to double check. But it made sense for me. It just works really well, because I know that obviously both you being exos, you were different, and you wanted to know, where you come from and why you help the humans and stuff, and. Just fitted really well, I think, to make it kind of the big revelation be down to you guys and how you feel, and that's why it was in your hands, because you were speaking to like the hive mind once again, and you had the choice whether to side with them or whether to fight back and shut it down. And yeah, they fought back. They decided to side with the humans after all the kind of inner searching and morality and stuff, and shut them down, shut the Vex down, shot the portals to shit, and stop the invasion.
It was by far one of the best end sessions.
It was definitely one of the best single games I've ever played, and also one of the best campaigns. I mean, the way that you did it was just insanely good. It was like it was because the way Nick did it, listener, was kind of like we did a lot of barracks life and what it was like to be just part of this like sort of army base, and we did a couple of missions throughout as well, and it was really about the characters and our relationships with NPCs and each other, and it was funny as shit. The action was like really incredible. It was awesome. But Nick,
thank you so much.
So now you've run 13 games of Cypher, so you've done a campaign, as it were. So what do you make of it now? Is there anything that you would change? Is there anything that you think particularly helped with the Cypher system?
I think it's a very like we've spoken about before. If you're bit like me when it comes to GMing, and get yourself a bit stressed out and over prepare sometimes or overthink it. It's a cracking system for someone like that, because you don't all the stuff that you have to remember kind of gets taken away, and all you need to kind of remember is good story, good narrative, and good making sure that your players are being involved. And that's why I absolutely love Cypher. I wouldn't say it's my go-to system above all others, but I definitely think it holds a really good place for these kind of type of games when you want a heavy narrative, lots of role play, a bit more, maybe a bit more lighter on the big combat and stuff, but or mechanics, but really want to kind of push the fun role play and interesting situations, and Cypher is perfect for me. It's the go-to one for that if you're looking for that type of game.
I see what you mean, yeah, because the thing is, I mean, it's got really robust kind of story game / RPG like character, role-playing mechanics, and I think that when it comes down to it, like, Savage Worlds doesn't. It's an open system, but it doesn't quite offer that. You know what I mean?
Oh no, totally, yeah. But whereas Savage Worlds would be my if you want like brutal battles, higher action, and just people shouting at the table with excitement, then you're going to go. You go to Savage Worlds because that evokes that kind of that system evokes that with the crazy rolls and stuff. And everything's got a perfect. That's why I can't stand when people just go, "Oh, I only play one system." It's like the system should suit the system should suit the setting and help the setting.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, one of the things is that I always GM, obviously, or I often GM, and I genuinely find, because GMing is so much more fast paced than playing, I find it often quite hard to get into character. I often find it takes quite a few sessions. But the thing is, in Cypher, where you're kind of spending your stat pools to do stuff, it makes you consider your actions a lot more, and it gives you a bit more to think about. As such, I felt like the system really allowed me to get into character. And Percival, the guy that I played, was probably one of my favourite ones I enjoyed the most. Anyway, I don't know if it was my best, but I enjoyed it because it was. Thanks, man. But it was pretty easy to get into because of the way the system was built. It was fucking awesome. And James, you played a blinder as well, but fucking awesome. And so I recommend everyone get out there and buy some Cypher system. It is expensive, but it is a bloody nice book.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a nice book, actually.
It's really good.
Yeah, it was cracking. So absolutely brilliant. But what next? What's happened next?
Yeah, so after that, we started a new campaign. We finally met up in person. Nick wasn't able to make it, which was annoying. We'll talk about that in a bit, actually. But essentially, we've started up the second leg of our Fandolin Zoo campaign. So long-time listeners will know that we once played a game. I ran it where the characters all come into possession of a disused monster zoo in D&D in Faerun, and have to populate it with monsters. And it was a good kind of balance between comedy and action, basically. And we're going back to that world, but essentially we've come back 5 years later, and the king has ordered a mandatory building of this thing called a mana fracker in each town. It basically drills into the earth and uses the earth's energy, the life stream, to power devices such as electric lights, auto wagons, automatons, things like this.
Guns.
And but what he's done is he's installed one in every city, and then each city will owe him the money and has to pay it back to him, basically. So the group ended up having one of these built, but have to in their town, which they run. But they owe him 50,000 gold pieces, and then it just so happens that one of the other dukes has got a new competition called X-Crawl, which I basically just stole the concept for. And he's made a big stadium, and it is dungeon delving as a sport. So the competition, they can get 150,000 gold pieces if they win, and all it is two teams go up, and the team that finishes the fastest wins the money. And it was this big stadium, things, all these like little automatons with lights on them, floodlights, things like this. It was like the height of technology in this universe. Fantasy.
Yeah, it's madness.
Yeah, it was a fantasy universe. And basically, they were running a dungeon called the Plume of Horrors, which is a hedge maze designed by one of the older characters from the group, Dave Dishington, your old character.
Yeah.
Nick.
That was right.
So
that was a whole quest,
this.
wasn't it, in the last campaign? Well, not a quest, but it was part of a side quest, if you like, yeah.
you did your downtime building this dungeon for the posh guy, and now he's making money off of it. He's made it into a sport.
Good man.
The idea, I thought, because of mazes, a Minotaur is like the typical enemy. So the whole premise of the dungeon is that it's a maze, and there are these different chambers where they have to figure out an astrological sign, either via a puzzle or a fight. And the Minotaur actually was a bunny tour because it's grass themed. So he had a big rabbit's head, like a sort of rabbit's head.
Yep.
And he was running around he was going to stalk everyone in the dungeon, beat them up, and then back off. And these guys are going to have to fight loads of things and run around in the maze, get lost, go to loads of different chambers. And here's what actually happened, though.
Go on.
So what happened was, very early on, the Minotaur became aware of where they were because they were making a lot of noise. And instantly, our barbarian, Grant Shaftesbury, smashed through the ceiling, the glass ceiling, and then just sort of ran around on the top looking for shit. One of the other characters got lost running off on his own and ended up at the end, but the guys eventually met up with them and just cheesed their way to the end. And they used a lot of trickery and things like this to kind of figure out what zodiac signs were needed by looking at this big dial. You needed to basically input all of these zodiac signs into the dial, and then it would open the door to the end of the dungeon.
Right.
So they basically just use detect construction tricks and their knowledge of astrology to figure out which ones it was.
Cheeky bastards.
Yeah.
Which is,
And also did a bit of tinkering with the door to like when you open up a safe and you put your ear against it and you hear a click. That was the first move, wasn't it?
it was
fuck the puzzles.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, it was amazing. The only point, actually, Stanley, who's one of the group's knights, he got lost and he was on his own, but he took down 2 vine horrors and got one of the codes, but they'd already figured it out back at the dial anyway. So
oh shit! Did you all split up then?
Yeah, for bits of it, because basically as they went into the maze, all of them were sprayed with a mild hallucinogen that would make them run off on their own. But most of them resisted it, so it was only a couple of them that ran off on their own. Actually, it was only one character who's Urchin Fiend, who's
Urchin did.
Yeah, he's this little
5-year-old.
He's a 5-year-old Sverfneblin who's the product of two previous characters who had sex, and now one of them was a hag, one was a gnome, so you get a Sverfneblin. And the funny thing is that the two of the characters that we've got at the moment, so Stanley and Dee Dee, two of the player characters, they're husband and wife, and Urchin is kind of their little orphan character. It's like their adopted son.
Brilliant.
Whereas Grant Shaftesbury, who's this really dodgy cowboy builder type, he's sort of like the fun uncle. And it was revealed last week, and I know this is terrible, and it was revealed during the game that Grant Shaftesbury had been showing him dirty videos. It was called Eurovision Thong Contest.
Yeah, and he'd also been feeding him alcohol.
Yeah. It's really awful. But anyway,
he's very old for his age.
Last thing that happened in the dungeon was basically they were just about to leave, and the Minotaur jumped in front of them. Urchin, the Sverfneblin, hits him with a sleep spell. The guy goes to sleep, and then they just stab it and kill it and tear it the fuck apart, and then jump out of the dungeon. And they beat it's not really relevant to you guys, but a lot of people listening will know how significant this is, but their opponent was Elemenster, and they beat him by a time of 4 minutes, so it was pretty amazing. Wow. And he's like, so in this world there are 9 druids, and they're like some of the most powerful people in the world, and he's one of them, and they beat him.
On par with gods, right?
Nice.
Yes, exactly. Well, they work directly for gods in my version of the universe. So yeah, it was pretty awesome, and they beat him, but they did it with a lot of trickery.
Well, a lot of Shaftesbury doing it.
Well, they had 3 days to prepare for their dungeon crawl, right? So what he did, Grant Shaftesbury, he's a dodgy character, and he went around trying to figure out what Elemenster's weakness is, and he found out that it was loneliness and snakes. And so what he did is he created a signal while he was signing autographs outside, because basically the characters are now world famous because of their saving the world in the previous campaign. He was signing autographs outside, and he said to everyone, he's like, right, I've got a code word, and when I say it, I want you all to chant about how lonely Elemenster is. And he set that off while he was running his dungeon, so obviously he would start crying, and also sewed a snake into his robes.
Yeah. So when at some point it just jumped out at him and he freaked out.
Wicked bastard.
Yeah, so it basically shafted his elements this time because all the crowd were against him and a snake hurt him midway through his run. So
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty ingenious. Yeah, it was crazy, but
Grant's up to his old tricks then.
Well, exactly.
Oh, yeah, instantly.
Exactly.
It was really weird, but
yeah.
amazing playing old characters and sort of getting into the thick of it so seamlessly.
Well, they were classics,
Yeah.
though, weren't they? They were absolute icons, though. Let's be honest. Some of the characters in this that campaign. So the surviving ones, probably pretty easy to slip them back on.
Well, yeah, exactly. And we've switched systems, but we've maintained the same level and roughly the same classes throughout.
Oh, right. What system are we using now then?
Old school essentials because it's much easier at higher levels. But anyway, the very last thing that happened was the stadium was subject to they collected their prize money, then the stadium was subject to a massive landslide.
Oh, shit.
And huge. The stadium just got torn in half, and out of the crack in the middle of the earth came this bright green light which shone brilliantly, and trees, like giant tree ant, like massive tree people started climbing out the middle of the earth and attacking the crowd, sending big handfuls of crowds like flying at a time.
Oh, Jesus.
And basically James very rightly pointed out, he's like, oh god, it's because of this mana fracker shit, where they're mining the earth and using its live stream. And so everything got really fucked up at the end, and this little satyr guy, like Danny DeVito in the Hercules films, his little character.
Yeah.
He came out and sort of spoke to the party, and he reckons he's there to help them, but he doesn't know why. So that was it.
Ooh.
And that's where we're at. A little bit of a cliffhanger. It was very fun, but we'll talk very, very quickly about the technical problems. We tried to get Nick to attend virtually, and it was actually really cool because we had him at the end of the table.
You had a really good angle, didn't you, Nick? I was surprised. I thought it'd be shit.
No, it was spot
so
on.
You could see
I
everyone's
could see everybody.
face.
Yep.
But it didn't work out because there was at first we couldn't hear you. Then James messed about with the audio settings and improved them, and then you couldn't hear us.
Yeah.
And then you switched to the phone version of Discord. Didn't work. But here's the funny thing, Nick. This might cheer you up because at the game, we often talk about a player in our group called Ryan who is quite stupid, and he there was literally a whole big box on the screen that said nobody's here at the moment. If somebody joins you, you'll see their video. And Ryan kept turning to the screen and going, "Isn't that right, Nick?" And he did it 3 separate times. You weren't even there. You hadn't been there for a while, and he was like, "You having that one, Nick?" And talking to the computer.
Oh, bless him.
Nobody was there.
Oh
man, we were absolutely fucking cracking up. We had to take a break because we couldn't stop laughing because that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen another human do.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Isn't that right, Nick? Nick? No.
We kept on after a while we closed the laptop and we kept on making jokes we were like, "Isn't that right, Nick?" And it was just a microphone sitting on a closed laptop.
Should have put a little hat on the mic.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, Mike.
So that's basically it for what we've been saying. Sorry we went along with this one. I'll probably try to edit it down anyway. I just wanted to let everyone know I'll be appearing on the Appendix N Book Club on the 16th, which is another podcast, and we're going to be reviewing Conan the Warrior, the novel. It is. I'm not going to spoil my views yet, but it is fucking rubbish. So we'll look forward to that.
Spoiler alert. Jinx.
All right, let's do a main subject, shall we?
Main. Subject. Magic. Main. Subject.
Tokyo.
Main. Subject.
All right. So we all know that, along with Dave Arneson, Ernest Gary Ramtree Gregory Nikolai Gygax was the father of the type of game that we all love, otherwise known as ARPGs. However, it's all well and good being responsible for the game that started it all, but Gary, or Gaza as I've come to know him, was also responsible for the biggest blunder in RPG history.
Dun dun dun.
So today,
Pray tell.
I'm gonna, James, if you would allow me, please.
With my permission.
Alright, this one's.
Allow it. So today we're going to analyse this colossal cock-up, this gargantuan gaff, and try to figure out, was Gary Gygax actually a good game designer, or did he just get lucky with his first one? because he also, he oversaw TSR's Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
He did Top Secret, which I don't know if that's good or not. And then he did the biggest cock up in RPG history. So let's get into it. But first of all, I'd like to thank David Porter for suggesting this topic, and you too can do the same. All you need to do is go to our Patreon and subscribe at the $10,000 tier.
You can literally tell us what to do, how to do it.
Yep.
We don't
Who
mind.
with?
If you're giving us $10,000 a month, we'll just make a podcast about anything.
About you.
We'll make a
About you.
podcast about watching paint. Yeah, we'll do one about you.
It depends where you are and if it covers it, but we'll come to you and record the podcast inside you.
All right, calm down.
All right, calm down, James. All right. This podcast isn't a place for jokes. I think I've made that clear.
Sorry, Dad.
4 years of saying that.
Shut. I'm not your dad.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
Yet.
the year was 1987. Gary Gygax had left TSR, and during this time, the idea of the darker, more adult themes were becoming a thing in RPGs, basically. Twilight 2000, Paranoia had just hit shelves, so Gygax, alongside Frank Mentor and Kim Mohan, decided to ride the dark RPG wave and came up with Cyborg Commando. A game set in the near future where evil aliens have invaded, and it's up to newly developed cyber soldiers called Cyborg Commandos to save the Earth. Now, before we get into it, you guys have seen the cover art and some of the inside art. I mean, that's always your first impression of a game. What'd you make of this?
Well, didn't I say if your mate drew it, you'd give it a good you'd say, oh, that's
pretty
cool.
good, mate.
But because it's your mate. But
yeah, so you're
if
saying
it's,
you'd give it the benefit of the doubt. You'd be like, well, he tried his best. I mean, but that's quite a damning way of looking at it. I mean, that tells you that it's quite shit. To give it a description, the cover art is of a man with a metal body, but human arms and a human head. But the head is way
too big.
Way too big. It's huge.
And it's clearly Arnie.
Yes, exactly. And then there's one inside cover art, which is it's like the most racist thing I've ever seen in my life. Probably by accident, to be fair. I don't think they did it on purpose, but it looks like somebody's blacked up. But the character is supposed to be Japanese. Why have you? And it's like literally pure black. It looks racist. It's awful.
The hell?
it just looks like Mickey Mouse's face because of the hair as well.
But I sent you a third piece of artwork as well, which was like a kind of more line art drawing of a cyborg commando. And what's interesting about that is he's got floodlights in his thighs.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
And infrared
Everyone
lamps
needs it.
in his shoulders. I mean, the thing is, with the lamps in your legs, I get one being on your shoulder, and police often have one on their chest and things like this. But why on the legs? When you're walking, it's going to constantly shine in your eyes or not shine on the direction that you're going.
Yeah, but
Unless
maybe
you're
he walks differently because he's a robot.
Robot.
Yeah, it would be like roller skates coming out of his feet. Actually, that reminds me, if you want to watch something like a really good Terabad like movie, check out Robot, the Indian movie. It is literally like this, the movie.
Oh, nice.
It's really quite
amazing.
bad.
Has he got all them classic low budget effects?
Yeah, like Indian fight scenes,
Yeah,
man,
yeah,
when they go
wicked.
over the top, they really go over the top.
Awesome.
And,
But they're awesome.
They are awesome.
There's a bit where there's this woman being touched up on a train by a bunch of people, and he tries to catch up by his roller skates come out of his feet, and then they're attached to the train line, and he goes along it, and he just beats the everlasting fuck out of all these perverts on a train. It is fantastic. He's like swinging around the poles that people use to stand
Awesome,
up.
yeah.
It's beautiful, man. So yeah, check out Robot. But let's get back onto the game. So it sounds like a pretty decent premise, right? You're not aliens. Aliens have come, you're a robot dude, and you're blasting them, right? But the game was seen as the biggest flop the RPG industry had ever seen, and one of the worst RPGs ever published. And I think this was due in part by the absolute top-notch celebrity designers on board, and from whom everyone expected better, and because the game's design style was supposedly stuck in the past. It's like the George Lucas thing. Everyone thought that this follow-up to Star Wars with the prequels was going to be fucking amazing. And was it?
No.
I'm just going to have to close my window because somebody's picked now to start mowing the lawn.
Attention fellow gamers, no anime beyond this point.
Alright.
I almost fell over.
Careful.
Good.
I'm good. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. During a period in RPG history where other companies were starting to innovate and refine, it was a popular belief that Cyborg Commando was stubbornly set in its ways. But is any of this true, or was the game a victim of people's high expectations? Well, today we're going to dive in and find out. So the game starts off with the cheesiest intro ever, and I'll put some cool music behind this maybe if I can be bothered. In 1985, a space vessel landed on the moon, but it wasn't ours. They are preparing now. They will be ready soon by their standards, in less than 50 years. Then the invasion will begin and succeed. You must retake the Earth. What I like about that intro, though, is the qualifier of they will be ready soon by their standards. It's like when your wife's getting ready and she'll be like, I'll only be a couple of minutes by her standards.
Yeah, it's like a little dig.
That's true.
It's like having a little dig at the aliens. It's like, come on, look, get it over with. Just let's do the war already.
They're notorious for being tardy.
Look, that handbag goes well with your war outfit. Just pick that one.
No, but the shade of lipstick is atrocious.
My gun doesn't match my jeans. Oh dear.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
They're ready soon.
So, Cyborg Commando trademark is set in 2035. And Earth, also known as World, has been invaded by aliens called Xenoborgs. However, handily, we invented the Cyborg Commando TM. Now, these aren't just cyberware men with android parts, they're actual man-like robots who have human brains implanted into them. Right. And reading through this, what's quite funny is every time Cyborg Commando is written, it's typed in all caps with the trademark next to it. They really liked the name.
Wow. So they shout it every time.
That's how I read it, at least, anyway. Like, my internal voice was just shouting, you know. And then that was when the Cyborg Commando was invented. So, there's there's a preamble section, right? And it's literally called preamble, which is the worst word you could pick for an intro to the game. But it's all about the world, right? Which is where the game starts. And for an introductory section, it is also so long. It goes on for ages, but I'll try to summarise it quickly. Basically, in this universe, there's something called a sync, and it was made in 2016, and this is a subcranial neural converter which converts human thoughts into signals which can be sent to a computer. The bloke who invented it was a bloke called Richard Sawtell, and in 2020 his wife died, which sent him onto a quest for immortality, so that's why he developed the Cyborg Commando TM. Now, there's an incredibly detailed history of how it came to be, and to be honest, it is fucking boring, and it's not even in like a funny way. But basically, a Japanese bloke called Kotusu helped him create the man machines by first experimenting on pigs and coming up with the Pigbot. That's actually what it's called.
Pigbot.
So, and Sawtell, right, the original scientist, he named the robotic pig TM after his dead wife.
Oh, that's a bit rude.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. If there's any animal you don't want to be thought of, you know, you don't want to be associated with, it's the pig. It is the ugliest.
She's that for life.
I know.
Little Miss Piggy.
So her biggest legacy in the world is that a robotic pig shares a name with her. So, you know,
her biggest legacy.
The thing, the thing is, I reckon that probably they didn't get on, you know, the husband and wife. They can't have.
So what does it say in which circumstances she sadly passed away in 2020?
Well, he reckons she accidentally shot herself in the head while shaving her legs.
Right.
But a court proved him innocent.
And Pigbot agrees.
Pigbot agrees. I didn't kill my wife, did I, Pigbot? No, sir.
No, sir.
So it was a small jump from pig to man, however, because by the end of 2024, Sawtell and Kotusu had done it and made a car mechanic into a human killing machine. Apparently, the reason they chose a car mechanic was because this bloke had nearly died and was on life support. But the problem I have with this is, how did they hear about that? They were working in the lab one day, and they were just thinking, oh, but we need a human subject to test this on. Suddenly the hospital calls. A bloke's just been in a car accident.
No, local newspaper, mate. Local newspaper.
They just saw the
Croydon Advertiser,
the pre-obituaries section.
Yeah. Mechanic.
They just had someone
hospital
researching constantly, looking at the news, being like,
Pigbot done it.
No,
Broke his arm. No. Something.
No, what it is they have a person sort of turning up to hospitals. Got anybody on life support, maybe? With a little £20 note, sort of slipping it to them.
And the bloke's like, yeah, we might have. It's like,
We might have. Maybe you'll find that his bed has been wheeled out by the bins out back.
And then Pigbot's just like, thank you.
Thank you, human.
Oink, oink.
I am Marjorie. Oink. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is, what you think, if you wanted to make the story a little bit more classy, maybe they had a scientist mate that volunteered to do the experiment, not just a car mechanic. I mean, it's bizarre. But anyway, so also to add insult to injury, right, this mechanic's brain wasn't even implanted into a man-shaped robot. They also put it into a pig one.
I thought you was going to say car.
That would be fucking cool, though.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Cyborg Commando.
I can tell you how to fix me.
I thought that joke that I just said was fucking brilliant and nobody noticed.
Cyborg Carmondo. I can't even say it.
Anyway, skipping over a lot of boring history, right? In 2029, Kotusu and Sawtell actually end up selling the rights to their project to the army and leaving the company. And in the words of the book, Kotusu and Sawtell left the Humanical project in the hands of competent but less creative scientists. And I'm to be perfectly honest, good, really, because if I was in a coma and I woke up with a pig body, I think I'd be really upset. It's not their creativity, really, that was the problem.
Hang on.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're saying they're less creative, but how many years did it take for them to make a pig bot and a mechanic pig bot?
It took a long time, and B, their creativity, I think, is a big problem. Because first of all, his wife gets named after a pig, then a car mechanic wakes up in a pig body. I'd rather be dead, thank you. But yeah, and I'll say this though, I've obviously vastly trimmed down that history part. One, it's important to know how things came to be in this universe. We don't need 7 pages of detailed history on that one aspect of the setting, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, perhaps a few pages, like a few pages on how different countries dealt with the alien threat, or maybe more detailed rundown of the hierarchy of the Cyborg Commando division, whatever, But all it is literally how it came to be. What it could have been is his wife died, he went on a quest for immortality, and he came up with this idea and then volunteered himself to become the first Cyborg Commando, and it worked. That's what it could have been.
Yeah.
What's all this nonsense about pigs and car mechanics? It's bizarre.
It's just so random.
Yeah, I mean, but ultimately, a preamble is supposed to be a quick rundown for players to read, right? But the beginning section, it talks about, and honestly, this is stuff I cut out, but so many minor characters that are never mentioned again. What their favourite food was, what brand of shampoo they use, just everything. It's madness. And then we come on to how to use the dice, which is weird because usually it's like, what is a role-playing game, how you play this game, but it just says how to use the dice, and it's weird, right? What? So this game uses a 2d10 system, not a percentile, right? It's really weird. So instead of telling you just how the dice rolling works, it has a section on how to roll and read a d10, and why that's not how the game works, but it is sometimes used. Then it says you can roll 2 d10s and add them together, and it mentions that that's also not the main method of rolling, but sometimes is. Then it tells you that you will be mainly rolling 2 d10s but multiplying the results together, and then explains that this is the best way to roll and is the main mechanic. And then it has 6 tables and 3 graphs to show you why the system is used. These charts and graphs aren't used to play the game, just to explain why the game is so good.
Oh wow. Were they getting paid per page?
It's, how like back in the days of like books like Count of Monte Cristo, for example, you could tell he was being paid by the word. Yeah. It's possible that Gary Gygax was being paid by the graph.
I reckon so. Can we squeeze one more graph in there? Gaz, I don't know, man. There's a lot in there already that show
Frank
nothing.
Mentor's like, Gary, we've already got 200 fucking graphs in there. What's wrong with you?
Could always have one more.
We can always. Please, just one more. I just need one more. I'll tell you when I've had enough.
Maybe a graph to show all the graphs.
Yeah, the graph. It's a very, very weird way to do it, and it's a bit mental. Just tell us how the game works. I can assume it's been play tested and that you think it's good, otherwise you wouldn't have published it. Or I'll just try it out for myself, Gary. Yeah.
Jeez.
Savage Worlds, for example, explains its dice system by saying that it means characters and main characters are more likely to succeed, and that's all the explanation I need.
Yeah.
And I'm quite stupid, and I am aware of this, okay? But I read through the explanations in Cyborg Commando 3 times, and I still don't know why it makes it better. I just don't. But here's what I think it means. I think the D10, rolling 2D10 and multiplying it together, they call it the D10X system, tends towards lower results, making high rolls more spectacular and rare. But I'm not even sure if that's right. So, I don't know. But it's really weird how it's written.
Check the graph, mate.
And also, guess what? I read their 3-page explanation on why they chose this system, and none of it tells you how to actually roll. What target numbers are, how to add your skills to rolls, or how the game works. And it's weird because there's so much extraneous detail in the intro and in the dice section, but then we get to character creation, and it's simultaneously, right, the most simple thing in the world and the most fucking annoying thing I've ever seen. So, right, we're going to go on a little journey here, lads. So, first of all, you have to describe your human pre-cyborgation, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're giving 60 character points and have to spend these in stats and skills. You have to use as few as 20 and as many as 50 in your stats, and then put the leftovers into skills. So between 20 and 50 in your stats, and then everything else goes on skills. And the stats are mental, neural, and physical. That's it. So mental is intelligence and governs the number of skills you can have, so it's quite important. Neural is physical agility and reaction speeds and governs attacking. And of course, physical is a measure of your sic muscles. So once you've assigned all that stuff, you pick skills. So using the rest of your build points to buy some abilities. You start with a 1 in every skill because of your training, and then you just add on top. And I have to admit, at this point, while I was writing this sentence about character creation, I hadn't the faintest fucking clue how any of this works, right? So I'd read it several times, but there was so much missing information. So it's like, it just says, right, you start with a 1, you buy skills. And I assume you just add 1 and it goes up, but you never know, you know? It might be that you add 1 and each point you add gives you a further +3, you know? It doesn't mention any of that. It just says, just put some fucking points in it and just try your best, you know? It's bizarre the way it's written. You have to figure out a lot. I'll get to it anyway, but it's fucking annoying. But there's a basic version where you purchase skills and categories, and an advanced one where you buy individual skills. So in the basic version, you might buy vehicle-based movement. In the advanced, you'd pick specifically motorbikes. But here's the thing. This is finally where it tells you how to roll a skill check. So you roll 2d10 multiplied, and then if the roll is equal to or less than the rating being checked, the attempt succeeds. But it was at this point in reading the book, I was like, what's the rating and how is that determined? It still hasn't told me, right?
What?
So do you buy levels in a skill? Do you add +3 for every point? Or do you just add +1 and that adds the rating? You don't know what a rating is and how to beat it yet. So
What the hell?
It's bizarre. Because the book explains what skills you can buy, how to roll them, but doesn't mention how to actually buy them. Then I found it was in a completely different section of the book, and it's actually simple. Spend 1 character point to raise a skill up from its base stat. So you spend 1 point, it becomes a 2. Spend another, it becomes a 3. Oh. Simple as that. But the thing is, they should point that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Should be in the other section.
That should be right at the beginning.
Because it's usually like, say for example in Pathfinder you buy it in ranks. Yeah, you add 1 level, you get a +1, but if you buy it in one of your class specific skills, you get extra points, and that goes for a lot of games. That's why I didn't realise it was going to be this simple, and it should have bloody mentioned that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that, but it might just be me being a fucking idiot, but I just felt it was really badly explained. Anyway, at this point I want to mention that the game's biggest fucking downfall, as I mentioned, is it's organised like a blind person in a hurricane did the layouts. Every piece of information is organised in a stupid order and in a bizarre way, and that's why I couldn't figure out how to do it. But important bits of information are omitted to include them later in completely different places where you'd never expect to find them. And this is the hardest part to just convey through words, but it's a mess. And anyone who remembers their first time picking up AD&D First Edition will remember the same feeling. And it seems to me now, we're trying to do this to answer, is Gygax a good game designer, right? And it seems to me that Gygax organisation was not something he was good at, even slightly.
Yeah, sounds it.
Yeah. But anyway, like I said, I might just be an idiot, but I spent 2 hours trying to figure out all of this shit. Once I knew it all, it suddenly clicked into place. When you first read it, it's infuriating. It shouldn't take me 2 hours to figure out how to create a character.
No, that's tricky. That's weird. When you read a rule book, especially me, sometimes it's quite difficult to kind of understand it as easily when you're just reading it as opposed to actually doing it, and when it's not
Just sitting down and trying it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's written badly, you're just like, it's going to stress you out even more before you even get to that point.
And that could be it. I reckon maybe if I sat down with one of you guys and tried to do it, it might be okay. But it's just the way it's organised. The character creation's super fucking simple actually, but it's just the way it's organised.
Maybe they did it on purpose to make you read the whole book.
Well, that is often how I find Steve Jackson books are organised. You kind of have to read the whole thing before you get an understanding of it. You can't just jump to the character section and figure out how to create a character. It's kind of give the whole thing a read and then you'll get it. So I think maybe it was... I think you're right, actually, there. So, anyway, you spend points in stats, skills, and if you're using magic, which is called psychogenics, you can put skills and you can put points into magic skills too. And once you've done all that, you simply do some final calculations and determine how good your robot body is, and you're done. So it's simple, but the information is spread over multiple chapters, and some of the skills are fucking amazing. So your brains are being taken out and put into a cyborg body with which you intend to save Earth from alien invaders. So what do you pick? What skills would you guys pick?
Probably reinforced bod.
Yeah, okay, so like some sort of defense skill,
Yeah.
James?
Definitely go for like a large attack, a large one.
So maybe rocket launchers?
Yeah.
All right,
Of course,
that
if
makes
you're
sense.
fighting aliens.
Can I get?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I get a gun hand?
Yeah, you can. Actually, all cyborg commandos start with a gun hand.
Yes.
So
What about a gun knee?
I reckon they probably have that too. But you got lights in your knees, so if,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
true. Yeah. Can I
if
get?
the aliens are allergic to that,
Can I get a klaxon that emits from my armpit?
here's. Well, that would be awesome. Here's the thing. So yeah, you're thinking, guns. You're thinking defense. You're thinking rocket launchers. You're thinking this.
Helicopter head.
What about domestic arts entertaining guests?
Oh, of course.
Fuck, why?
Or what about romance?
Oh, that's got
maybe-
to be up there.
It's not a game about that, though, is it? It's a game about being a cyborg fucking
Commando.
wanker. And that's it. That's the
Big
one.
dog.
Big
But
dog.
yeah, here's the thing. So you got domestic arts, entertaining guests, we've got romance, or maybe, what about if your mission is to save an orphanage, and during the mission, the au pairs at the orphanage get blown up. Suddenly you're left with a bunch of kids to look after. And I think this is why they include the parenting skill.
Oh my god.
Or maybe there's a meeting with the Xenoborg leader to discuss a peace treaty, and you want to look your best, so you better take the physical arts, grooming, and wardrobe skill.
What?
Cyborg
fuck,
Commando, the game where you can do your hair and practice your parenting skills.
Fuck is this shit, man.
Yeah, plot twist. The aliens
Yeah.
aren't trying to take over the world.
Well, there's categories. So I said domestic arts, entertaining guests. There's also cooking, cleaning, all sorts. It's bizarre. But I guess, I mean, listen, you're a cyborg commando, right? You're built with one purpose in mind, but you still have your human brain and probably your human life. Maybe you'd... But the thing is, all of these skills, right? I assume they're implanted into you as part of your military training. So when does the haircut bit come up?
Drill sergeant
All
comes
right,
out.
maggots, I'm going to teach you how to do a crew cut.
Drop and give me 20.
Drop and give me 20 kisses. This is the romance class. So yeah, it's really, really weird. But let's talk about the cyborg commando body. So you guys mentioned that. That's the name of the chapter after character creation. It's actually just called cyborg commando body. It kind of details what a cyborg commando body is like. It's pretty cool. You've got 5 different types of eye lens, which means you can see infrared signals or TV signals. Don't know when that would come up, but it's pretty cool.
Right.
And the cool thing is, well, I mean, let's say, for example, you do your research, you figure out that the aliens have a specific love towards watching
Neighbours.
Home and Away. Yeah, and then you look at the TV signals and you analyse it and you're like, all right, that's Home and Away. They could be there. And you've also got your eyes can operate independently. So if in the universe of Cyborg Commando you see a cross-eyed bloke with great hair holding a baby, you better run the fuck away because that's a tough guy.
Yeah.
Holding a baby while simultaneously cleaning his gun.
Yeah, there you go. And your mouth is also a miniature chemical lab, meaning you can lick things to analyse them.
That's cool.
So if you want to know how old a bloodstain is, like, doing CSI, you just lick it and it will just send it to your mouth lab.
Wow.
Right, do you have to eat in this game?
No, you do have power, and we'll come to that. So you don't really eat; you just get powered up. So I guess, to be fair, they're making the mouth would otherwise be useless. So I guess they're making the best of it. Do you know what I mean?
Little robo tongue comes out.
Listen, it's not all stupid, all right. So because that's obviously why you come pre-installed with a microwave.
Shut up. Or was that in the centre?
No, it's actually on your hands, to be fair. But yeah, so you can like put things between your hands and microwave them. I think it's like, I think it's like you can burst people's heads with it. I don't think it's like you to heat up a ready meal.
It probably is to heat up the ready meal. That ties in with the orphanage adventure where you have to look after the kids and also feed them. So
well, yeah, exactly. If you take domestic arts cooking, you become very skilled at microwave cooking.
Handheld microwave cooking.
Like maybe one of your human comrades is dying on the floor like in a film, and he's like, I can't go on, Sarge. I can't do it. And then you're like, wait a minute, here's a delicious lasagna.
I've held it for 20 minutes. It's piping hot, be careful. Sorry.
So hot.
He went out the best way.
He went out how he would have loved it, taking a burning lasagna to the face.
Boom. Successful.
Each of these features, your microwaves, your mouth lab, all of it uses power units to use. And if you deplete them all, you might power down. So be careful, because if you use your inbuilt microwave rays to heat a meal for your superior, well, that uses up power. So, but don't worry, it's really easy to recharge. There's no proprietary charging dock, which is fucking mental. All you need to do is break an electrical circuit and use your hands or feet. So if you can just recharge using a car battery or by sticking a fork into a socket.
That's handy.
I'm blowing the fucking electrics for everyone. I bet they're a nightmare.
So yeah, let's say the aliens are attacking a civilized area, a housing estate or something like this.
You punch through the wall, grab the electrics.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, don't mind me. Just on a mission. Would you like a lasagna by way of an apology about the wall? I'll come back later because I've got building walls skill. So, let's talk about combat. So, the book states that each combat turn is 8.6 seconds. And that's fine, obviously. But why it mentions that 8.6 seconds is 1/10,000th of a day, I'm not entirely sure. As if GMs were tracking time by the 10,000th of a day. But
yeah, that's pointless.
Combat is pretty easy. Your neural score determines how many actions you take, and where you go in the order is determined by what you're doing. So combat is acted in stages. Zap weapons first, fast projectiles next, slow projectiles and then thrown objects, and then melee. So, but you may take only one action per phase, so you're able to take 5 actions in a turn. If if you're quick enough. So you can't use a laser 5 times, but you can shoot a laser, fire a gun, then a bow, then throw a brick and follow it up with a slap. All in one turn.
What the hell?
Just imagine that. Imagine somebody doing all of that in 8 seconds. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
But the best thing is the fact that everyone's doing all of this at the same time. So imagine 2 cyborg commandos, perhaps having a little friendly duel, and they do laser gun, bow, brick, punch all at the same time. Like sometimes in kung fu movies where they punch each other's fists in midair.
Yeah, it cancels each other out.
Yeah. It'd be like that, but with 5 different accents. Yeah. Accents? Actions.
Accents would be cool as well.
5 different accents. Oh, God. Don't do that. Sorry. So, to hit anyone, all you do is roll 2d10x and try to roll under the enemy defense value. Now, what's interesting about this is usually to achieve something, you roll under your own score. Okay, so the more points, the easier it is. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. But in combat, you're just rolling under their defense value. So that means your skill has absolutely no bearing on combat. You just roll and beat their score. So, but you do have a combat rating, but it's not linked to any skills. So if you put loads of points into kung fu and try to chop someone, it's not useful in combat. But if you're using your kung fu to try and open a door or chop a lever, or show off to a lady, you're going to be fine. But using it in combat, fuck you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the book ends with a bunch of extra rules for combat, and then another chapter, by the way, on how cyborg commandos work for some reason, which includes a helpful diagram indicating, the leg floodlights that we've already seen.
Another graph in there?
You bet your ass there's another graph in there, Nick. If you like graphs, this is the game for you.
Graph the RPG.
Yeah, I wonder what that would stand for. Generic role-playing,
Ass.
alien...
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary is probably be it, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a levelling up table after this. So as a character gets experience, they get the chance for a promotion, and then their combat rating goes up. But as I said, the chance for a promotion. So to get your level up, you have to have a performance review with 3 superiors, and they can deny your promotion. Which means you could have fought hundreds upon hundreds of battles, looked after 1 million kids, washed 1,000 kitchens, but if the bosses don't like you, your combat rating ain't going up.
What?
Meaning that for some weird reason, your combat rating is directly tied to your rank. So the highest ranking military personnel, the ones behind the desks and the strongest people known to man, they'll only turn your attack dial up if they approve of your methods. Which kind of makes sense, but the fact that it's just tied to rank. Why not promote everyone to the highest rank and make them super powerful, then destroy the bloody aliens?
No, there's got to be a hierarchy there. Come on. I could just picture this like cyborg commando after having all these amazing battles and being victorious in like numerous wars, sitting like behind a desk in front of a panel with a little tie on, trying to explain his methods.
Yeah, and what I imagine as well is like, imagine like you're under siege by a number of aliens, right? Let's say you two are the players, and you're under siege by a number of aliens, right?
Yep.
And you're losing. It's a losing battle. They're smashing through the windows. People are starting to die. This, that, and the other. And then suddenly you look at another player and go, "Just turn my attack dial up. Turn my rank dial up 1." And then they're like, "No, can't do it. Not allowed." But people are dying. Not allowed. Stop it.
We haven't scheduled a meeting in.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did the Earth die? Oh, it was red tape that killed it in the end.
That's it. That's exactly why it's so stupid. It's so weird. So this game was released in a box set, right? As was the style of the time, which means there was a whole setting/GM book written solely by Gary Gygax. And as we all know, the man is a loony bin. He's an entirely loony. If you've ever read a Gary Gygax adventure, he hates players. And there's a rumour, I don't know if this is true or not, that he used a full body screen so that people couldn't see anything he was doing. A GM screen.
Oh my god. So just heard this disembodied voice.
So think about that, right? There was the setting book is basically entirely written by him, right? The man that uses a full body screen. So it's got world maps, info on areas in the world, and some stuff that would be useful for players to know. For players to actually know instead of learning about a pig robot named after a bloke's wife. Now, here's something funny. Where do you think the most highly coveted military location in the world is? The place the book describes as the ultimate location for a cyborg commando base, right? Where do you think that's going to be? Now, if we look at our military history, Mauritius is known as quite a good military strategic location, but where do you guys think?
He's going to put it in the Arctic or something.
Oh.
Nick?
In a nunnery?
Skegness.
Shut up.
Sorry, what?
And now, what's interesting about this? Skegness, I looked it up. It's old Skeggy, mate. I looked up its military history, and guess what? The bases that were there during World War II are now a butlins.
Full of cyborg commandos.
So
in
here's
red
the
jackets.
Thing. That's my thing, because this is set in the future, and now it's a butlins. So that means at some point cyborg commandos had to clear out a butlins. You imagine people watching sort of crap, light, frothy entertainment with weak beer, and suddenly these robots come in and start kicking tables over.
This is our new command
Move out the way. We have come to save you.
Yeah.
Put the beer down now.
Step away.
Anyway, so the world part actually is somewhat useful for like a globe-hopping war type campaign, but it's the part on Xenoborgs that I like. It's so detailed and describes their military ranks, their weapons, their biology. Now this is interesting for a number of reasons. Well, first of all, the aliens are made of different cells than us, right, called X cells, which means they can hydrate, breathe, change the hardness of their skin, all sorts of things, just by changing their own cells or the cells around them. So if you fire a bullet at one, well, not only can it harden its skin by instant dehydration, sending the bullet pinging off somewhere else, but it can also just convert that bullet to water or oxygen.
That's cool.
I mean, that is cool, but
it's a bit OP, isn't it?
That's the fucking problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So when you think about this, do you know when you would be playing superheroes on the playground as a kid and there would always be some kid that goes, I've got every superpower ever imaginable, I win. Right?
Yep.
That's what these aliens are. They're nigh on unkillable. And guess what? Huge parts of the book are dedicated to what Gygax calls his realistic aliens, backed up with pages on pages of absolutely nonsensical pseudoscience and meaningless mumbo-jumbo. So where's the fun in killing these invincible, realistic aliens? Well, don't fear. They do have two weaknesses. Lasers, which happen to be pre-installed in every commando. Handy. And nuclear bombs. Those are the only two weaknesses. Obviously, the concepts he came up with were bloody stupid. But here's the thing. I think I know what he was going for here. I think the game is supposed to be about catching them unawares so they can't, change their matter or whatever, or use their defences, or the player sort of discovering the weaknesses for themselves, which actually isn't terrible. But it's basically like fighting Superman, and not just one, but several million. And they all look like mollusks as well, which is fun. So it's slugs with the power of Superman.
Wow. And while we're getting distracted by committee meetings, they're being indestructible.
Yeah, they're firing eye lasers. They're turning humans into water. I mean, that's the problem. It's just they're really, really overpowered. Now, the rest of the GM's part is all like a bunch of guides and shit like that. But overall, I think that it's a pretty terrible game. I think it is pretty crap. The presentation is fine. It's very 70s though, and it was made in the 80s. And some of the drawings are accidentally racist, but the design of the game, the awful superfluous detail, the rapid shifts between crunch and oversimplification make it easily one of the least appealing game books I think I've ever read. Now, I find this interesting because, I keep an open mind on all these things. And in the Indiana Jones episode, we discovered that the game was quite good, despite its bad reputation. But I personally think this one deserves what it got. And that's it but you guys, Nick, what do you think? What do you think of all of this?
It's just disjointed, isn't it? I mean, you've got two games there by the sounds of it. You've got a superhero OP game where it could have been that the aliens were OP, but the cyborg commandos were OP, and the whole Earth was the innocent bystander, I guess, and it's whoever's left to survive after the big fights are the survivors, which could be fun, and it'd be more of an apocalyptic kind of end of days, I don't know, type game. Or the other one is just a silly robot game where you can get tied up in having meetings and doing your hair. Take the aliens out completely.
I think the way you put it, the only way to run this is as a comedy game.
Yeah,
really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the aliens are like, it says, when they're ready. I would suggest probably running most of the campaign when they're not ready, so you can just get on with the funniness and then maybe have a final battle when the aliens show up.
Yeah, like the whole game is all red tape and getting ready and trying to get, somebody to turn your combat dial up. Look, they're going to be here in 5 days.
Corporate politics, and then finally the final game is hello. Take everyone into war.
And you've already got the solution. Boom.
Yeah.
But what I find funny is, as I mentioned, this was Gary Gygax's attempt to make a dark RPG, and he came up with pig robots and people shooting lasers out of their fingers.
Gal, come on, mate.
No. But James, how about you? What do you make of it?
I just think, it just sounds like a pile of shit, like you said. It's just all over the place. It's not well explained, at all. And it just sounds like, it sounds like the first draft got published.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah. It does.
It was like it was on the back burner for ages, and someone just literally just went, "Oh yeah, let's just put it in."
I think you're absolutely right because I think it was Monty Kirk who was once quoted as saying, when third edition came out, apparently like a lot of all the D&D designers were still just playing AD&D second edition and first edition. And they, when asked about playtesting, I think it was Monty Cook that said, "Oh no, we never used to playtest in those days. We just got it finished and got it out." So you're probably right, James.
Fucking terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't believe he went for something dark and then sort of shut this out. Nothing
That's
about
not
it
dark,
is
is it? It's more, I don't know.
It's like deeply silly, isn't it?
Comedy,
it's more like
sci-fi, yeah.
I think it has more in common with like Benny Hill than it does, anything dark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, this whole segment was to figure out whether or not Gary
Gygax
was trying to find out if he was a if he was a bad game designer.
Yeah, it was.
I think maybe because the thing is, we know he did a good one to begin with. You know, we have a lot to thank him for, but it was other people that refined it that made his shit good.
So was Chainmail good?
I don't know. But Chainmail was more of a fantasy, medieval themed war game.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So dropped the ball a bit with Indiana Jones. Dropped the ball a bit with Cyborg Commando.
Maybe he's like maybe it's the thing like with the like the George Lucas thing, right? When George Lucas is a great guy at ideas, coming up with things, and then it's the other people around him that kind of refine it and make it into a great movie. When he was given a blank check and did the prequel movies, they were notoriously awful, right? So maybe it's like that. Gary Gygax, he was good when he had a team, but when he branched out and it was just him and two of his mates making a game, he came up with this, I don't want to say he's a bad designer because honestly, I don't know if I know enough of his work to make a judgment. But it's
well, putting the case together, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean we're getting there. At the
it's
moment,
2-1 at the moment.
Good, Gary,
it's 2-1. It's 2-1 to him being bad because you got them two, and then you got one. Goal for Gary. I would say D&D, I suppose. But let's see.
Yeah, but I think it's right that there's other people refining it because the book that he said that he wrote on his own, and then it just had the pages of the nonsensical scientist bullshit that really is irrelevant to the game and all that stuff. It's just like, well, that was his own pouring out of his own brain. It kind of just like, well, it kind of sucks, man.
Maybe he's just like one of those. Yeah, he just needs a bit of a team around him. But who knows? We may be wrong about all of that.
Probably.
Who knows? I mean, and the thing is, we shouldn't speak ill of the dead because if there's anybody that would be able to haunt us, is him because he's written about ghosts enough in D&D.
That's true, and we still love him for bringing the hobby to the masses. Let's be honest, he'll never take that away from him, regardless.
But Gary, you done goofed. All right, you done goofed with Cyborg Commando.
You got 2 games there, mate.
If he'd have made Cyborg Commando, I'd be up for that.
Now we're talking.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
Maybe that's what the movie Pixar's Cars came from. It was an early draft of Cyborg Commando.
Oh, don't! I saw a meme the other day, and it said that the guy that thinks up the names for like the Pixar movies is on about 130k a year, and it said thanks for Cars and Cars 2.
That can't be real though.
But no,
I don't know.
I hope he's not. But yeah, that was good, guys. I mean, that was a real corker. I want to thank. Give me a minute here. David Porter for sending that one in. That was a good subject. If you have anything you want to see covered, then give us a fucking message. Send us an email. 3trpgpod@gmail.com.
Just quickly, was it supported with any supplementary stuff, or was it just the box came out?
More than you'd think, actually,
really?
But not a lot.
Oh,
not a lot,
okay.
But more than it deserved. Let's put it that way. All right, let's get on to some electro letters.
Yeah.
In the future, you will be able to send a letter or parcel from anywhere on the planet. This, sir, is the electro letter.
So we asked you guys, what are your tips on making interesting characters? I thought our listeners, they are interesting characters in and of themselves, so they might know, right? And first one comes in from Robert Woford. He says, for PCs, I like the powered by the apocalypse method of having them assign background links to each other. So for my NPCs, I just try to give them one distinct thing. In my last Deadlands game, the players named the kid with the one boot Hoppy Sam and started going to him for all kinds of information. He was intended as a one appearance character. Yeah, I mean, we've made characters in Fiasco, for example, where people come up with background elements for you, and you always end up with great characters in Fiasco. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. As for the characters that are like one-off people, that I think that happens a lot actually, because I remember in our early games, when a Pathfinder campaign I played with James and Sean, there was a character called Gungar who was just this barman, and they took such a liking to him that he ended up becoming with them on like further adventures and escaping this prison colony with them and stuff. It was
my favourite. He was my absolute favourite. Guys.
Yeah.
That's also the same as Dan Irwin in the old FB. He weren't meant to be It was just meant to be a one-off.
Skull,
So yeah, no, Foreign Beggar's actual play, Ravenlord one, yeah, it was a one-off character. It was a talking skeleton, and they took him in the entire quest. He died on the last episode, actually.
Oh,
no spoiler if you haven't watched that already.
Oops.
Pete Jones, he says the characters must be based... Well, he's failed at grammar here. So Pete Jones, he says the characters must be based presenters of your favourite podcast. I think he means based on... But that's actually good advice. You listen to podcasts and you hear these people talking for like hours and hours. So it's a good thing if you need to pull one out of the bag.
Good old Pete Malloy.
Thank you, Pete Malloy. Richard Woolcock, he says, I once ran a one-shot where the players had to choose an interesting feature for another player's character. I prepared cards with things like extremely attractive except for... or has a particularly noteworthy item of clothing, and each player had to draw one card, choose which PC it applied to, and then expand on it. I remember that one of the PCs was a stunningly attractive gnome with enormous feet, while another had a vile-smelling pair of trousers that had been passed down in their family for generations. The trousers couldn't be washed. Not sure I'd do that for a campaign, but for a one-shot it was great. The players chose things for each other that they'd never pick for themselves. That is awesome. That's really cool.
That's a really, really awesome idea, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually like that for a campaign, though. If somebody had to choose something about my character, some weird feature, it might be fun. I mean, as long as they're not all completely stupid, do you know what I mean? It's not all mental.
No, definitely. It gives it, and it helps as a player as well. It gives them something to work off of.
Totally, man. Now, the next one comes in from Jonas Rehunen. Now, what he said is, if you read this out, refer to me as Jonas, please. Last time you tried to pronounce my name was horrendous, even though a valiant attempt, and it traumatised me deeply.
Bless him.
So I've just made the mistake again, Jonas. Genus.
Genus?
Isn't it Jonas?
I'll just... I don't care, James. You think I give a fuck about the listeners? No, I really do. I just want to say, I mean absolutely no offence by trying to pronounce the names. I know it's awful, and I know it's probably bordering on the offensive, but I am very sorry. But he does say, I like focusing on making a personality of a character and then slapping on some race, class, whatever on top, instead of the, I want to play an Orc Paladin and I like God, I guess.
Nice.
And that is actually perfect. Starting with the personality first is always the way you should do it. I also like the method of ICRPG where you pick a picture first and then try to think what that person is like based on the picture.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys feel this, but when you're trying to pick out a mini for a character, it makes it so much easier if you just base the character on the mini rather than making a character and going, oh fuck, I can't find a mini that fits my giant gnome with big feet,
Yeah, agreed. And that can be good as well if you're a bit stuck for an idea when you're making a new character. Then good old Google search, look at some portraits, and that'll help.
Yeah, definitely, man. And just looking on the mini websites now, you can get some really whacked out weird ones. You can come up with ideas. Jonas continues and he says, other stuff include obsessions, fears of weaknesses that are only a source for role playing, having weaknesses like debuffing your own character, but we aren't here to win. We're here to have fun and tell stories, and struggling to overcome your fears makes for great stories. Character development and other buzzwords here, you get it. I would agree with you. Jonas. But I have unfortunately had my fourth character die in my Saturday game of Old School's Essentials, where because I've tried to pick flawed characters and it turns out they're so flawed they keep dying. So my next one's going to be great in every way.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, because the way the DM runs that game is pretty funny. Instead of making characters, what we do is we just... he has a big list of completely randomly generated characters, and you just pick one every time your character dies.
Nice.
So at the moment I'm playing a Lamassu, which is like a big flying lion thing, and it can turn invisible as well. So I'm just like, well, this one actually might survive. But the cool thing is, the names are randomly generated as well, so my character's called Dude McVeigh.
That's cool.
It's brilliant, man. Some of the names that thing chundles out, like my previous character was this old hag, because he also randomly generated height and weight, and my character was really tall, but only weighed 85 pounds. So she was like basically a skeleton.
No way.
So she was a hag, and but she was called Polished Eldon, which is a good name. So next one comes in from Trevor Hurst. He says, I run the games. It's a bold claim, man. I don't know why I found that so funny. It's like, it just, you know what, it sounds like, you know, like from Breaking Bad, I'm the one who knocks, I run the games.
Shut up.
Yeah, so he says, I run the games, so I create NPC characters. They're usually all caricatures of people I have known. My ace tip for creating characters is to pay attention to the folks that populate your real life. We've said that enough times on this podcast. Enough times. It's the number one tip, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, for example, I might base a character on James, and it might be like...
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, sorry. I'm so sorry. Terry Hansen, he says, I recommend having a name.
Cheers, mate.
Get out. Get out! You stupid man. Yorkus Rex, he says, it's all in the backstory. I was an orphan with no memories of my past. Ain't gonna cut it, that's trash. Give the GM something to work with, they live that stuff. He means love. I was a child performer in a travelling troupe of circus folk when the ringmaster summoned a group of demons that killed everyone except me. I grabbed this amulet and ran. From the flaming wreckage of the collapsing tent, I heard the ringmaster screaming after me with threats of eternal revenge. If your GM doesn't jump at that, then he's a soft lump that reads Forgotten Realms novelizations like they're cheap romance novels. Prod him along by asking him if every NPC you meet is the demonic ringmaster, and clutch the amulet nervously. Some people will break out a spreadsheet showing you how they have perfected some power build through an optimised collection of feats and rules exploits. Oh, shut up. Those aren't interesting characters unless you enjoy watching competitive collegiate calculus matches. That's just power gaming. It's what you do with your character when you aren't rolling the dice that truly make them interesting. Using your backstory and creating new stories, that's where it's at.
Amen.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
Absolutely.
It's a shame, you know, because on this podcast I like to pretend that I'm smart, and when people outsmart me like that, it really annoys me.
It really hurts, but it's he's absolutely right, Yorkus Rex.
Yeah, damn straight,
Well
man.
done.
And you know, coming up with an interesting backstory like that, when the GM's having a bit of creative writer's block or something, he can do a side quest that involves your story. I mean, look at our GenLab campaign. I always make a character that has something they're searching for, some reason they went out adventuring beyond money. And even if it is money, why do they need the money? So in a particular case, you know, my character, when I rolled him up in GenLab Alpha, he was a nomad and things like this. So I thought, why did he become a nomad? And it was to find the people that killed his wife and his son, and he knew one detail about him, and it was that the man moved abnormally fast for somebody that had a peg leg.
That's it, yeah.
And that became a big deal, and eventually we solved it, and it got me a chance to change my character and become a person that had fulfilled the goal, you know, and come up with a new goal.
Totally.
It was good fun, man. Just do it. To create a decent backstory.
And it gives the GM loads to go with.
So, Daniel Owen, he comes in with the final question. Oh, no. What have we become?
I used to absolutely love that
Losers.
song as a kid.
I've become the very thing I hate.
Loserness.
Me. I generally tend... This isn't me talking, this is Daniel Owen, so I'll do his voice. I generally tend to create 3 layers to any character I make. The first is surface or conscious characteristic that most defines him. Then I ask, why? And I imagine him sort of on the edge of a hill with a breeze in his hair, just saying, why?
Holding his hand up.
And create a second narrative that is the subsurface or subconscious characteristic that drives the surface behaviour, and then I finally look for the core motivation that really drives him, working backwards from the subconscious characteristic. That way the character behaves a certain way, it can be tied back to a core motivation, and this way works its way to surface presentation. That, or I just randomly pick a personality trait and just overact the shit out of it. Either one works.
So you got the deep theory, the deep method, and then
that
the
was
other
one of the things I quite liked about Vampire, is you had, I can't remember what the fuck it was, but it was like you had how you project yourself to others, what you really feel inside, and what your personal goals are.
Yeah.
And it really drives the character, that shit. You've got to have that. If you don't...
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, we're quite lucky because all of us tend to do character-driven characters, which should be the thing. You know, personality-driven, I should say. We've got one guy at a table that's a power gamer, but luckily he is also quite a good role player, so it works out.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Best of both worlds.
I don't particularly like power gaming, but it's okay. I will accept it if you're a good fucking role player and you can, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. You know what I mean?
I'm just not very good at it.
No, me neither. I mean,
That's-
that's
I think
probably
that's
why
the
I hate
problem.
it, because it's like because I'm jealous.
How do you do that? So
We do have one general question actually from Owen Lean. He says we have to figure out. We've talked about in the past what our favourite table game food is. He's asking us what the worst food and drink to bring is. We'll start with James, and don't come up with any answers like a pint of semen.
He stole it right out my pint of semen.
I think it has to be actually considered to be a food or a drink. But what's the worst variety?
Okay, so I think the worst kind of thing to bring to the table would be, say for instance you brought something like chicken wings, right? So firstly your hands are going to get gross.
I was going to go to the same area actually.
Yeah, gross hands, a lot of noise, a lot of munching, a lot of stuff you have to discard, and therefore it's messy. It's like just don't do that. That is obnoxious at a table.
You know though in medieval times where you had this idea that you'd eat with your right hand and what is it? You sanitize.
Right with your left.
Yeah, that was it, right? So what if you only do that? You just play the whole game with your left hand, giant turkey leg in your hand. I mean, that's quite cool, actually.
That is quite cool, actually.
Yeah, maybe.
But chicken wings, they're too small and they require two hands.
And they're messy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's whatever. But yeah, that kind of thing is too messy. And also drink-wise, if it's too viscous, like if it's going to be like a slushy, it's going to be a lot of condensation on the table, and it's going to be a lot of slurping.
Condensing drink.
It's going to just be like, imagine drinking it, and like just imagine someone with chicken wings going like,
or bringing like milk on a hot day.
There aren't really that many drinks that could be bad, but like as Nick pointed out just then, a hot drink on a hot day is pretty bad because you're just upping the temperature of the room with your black coffee sitting there.
But we tend to just bring hard booze.
Yes, exactly. I'm also not entirely convinced on nachos. As much as we like them at the table, for you
They're
players
messy.
where you're close to the sauce, where you're close to the dipping sauce, right? That's easy. Me as the GM, when I'm reaching around, that travel where the salsa is on top of the chip, you're really running a gauntlet. You're dicing with death.
That deserves an episode in itself, doesn't it? The GM diet, where you're too far away from the snackage to ever have a proper munch at a game.
Well, I'm quite lucky because James will often just feed a few things over my GM screen for me.
That's true. Yeah.
Or create like a mini GM plate. Just be here's a bunch of stuff and just chuck it over.
Nice.
But I suppose even at the minute, specifically at the minute, it was just there's no sharing a snack. So what you want.
Nick, I'll allow you to do your answer in a second, but I think we've identified a sort of very current, quite shit foods to eat at a table because because obviously there's no sharing food at the table because we're not touching the same things and everyone's got their own snacks and they can snack on those. But somebody bought a salad and he was trying to feed it up under his mask and eat it, and then his mask broke because he's a fucking idiot, so he had to get another one out and put that on.
Yeah, you sort of like lift up the mask to eat it underneath the mask.
For God's sake.
Bloody stupid. And then after he's like, mate, that was a nightmare. Just have a sandwich. Take a big bite every few seconds. Fuck
you should
me.
just blitzed it and just drunk it.
Sit away from the table for a bit and just eat it.
This is what annoys me. This is what annoys me about hot foods, right? If I'm coming to a game and I haven't eaten dinner, I'm going to pick up a sandwich, a bag of crisps, and a drink, right?
Yeah.
I'm the pizza. You need a hot meal. No, you don't. Shut up. Stop being a bitch. Just get a sandwich, right? Because then you have people that are interrupting the flow and going out to get pizzas constantly, and then
Cook stuff.
And no, I don't want to sound ungrateful because I often get a slice of it, but I'm just saying, I just find it a bit weird.
There's a difference between dinner and snacks.
Actually, you know what? That's a really good one for worst foods, like a full dinner, like a roast dinner. Imagine there's one guy just at the end of the table, little napkin tucked into his shirt, big roast, carving it. He's eating a potato. What'd you say?
Do you remember when I got an onion ring platter? That was probably the best presentation at a game I've ever had.
No, wasn't it chicken nuggets?
Chicken nugget rose, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good, man. That was good. Chicken nuggets is a good one.
It took the only thing that happened, I think, that really pissed me off at that time was the particular person who presented it. For some reason, firstly, took so long. Like, why are you doing that?
Because
you don't need to do that. And
Because
secondly,
we wanted to present it in that cool way where he made a rose out of the nugs.
yeah, but it was at my house, and then he used my sauce and like filled up bowls of it, and I was just like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I won't complain.
Yeah, I won't complain either. But it wasn't my house or my sauce. I loved it.
That's true. I loved it.
Let's just say a big thanks to Phil for making that and
was
for
great.
winding James up.
So my worst snack at the table ever was them disgusting fucking tomato sweets that you lot brought that time.
Oh, those. Yeah.
Oh,
I still got them.
of
They were
course you
fucked
have.
up.
They're horrible.
So there were these Japanese sweets that were flavoured like tomato. They were pretty bad. Actually, you know, oh God, I keep veering into good ones. I like talking about food, if you haven't noticed. I've got very fat during lockdown. But when James brought snacks back from the Philippines.
Oh, yeah.
Trouble is, I was going to do that when I visited Japan, but the annoying thing is I ate them all on the way back.
Happens. It does happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so worst gaming food was those horrible tomato sweets. What about drink? I don't think there is an unacceptable drink, except for a hot drink on a hot day. I remember the first Savage Con when somebody put a fucking coffee machine on, you know, one of the ones that keeps it warm all day, behind table 3.
Yeah.
It was like the middle of April, the sunniest day of the fucking year, and then somebody had put this coffee machine on. We were sweating our fucking asses off, and there was like
Stinking
basically
up.
a radiator in the corner.
Yeah, it was pretty
You know what,
hellish.
actually, I think would be a shitty drink to... I don't know. I feel like hot drinks in general, kind of, you know, we haven't had hot drinks at the table in a very, very, very long time. But imagine sitting there and, like, say, for instance, ignore the pandemic and then we were having minis and we've got stuff on the table. It takes up a lot of space. But you're sitting there with your dice tray in front of you. Then everyone's got a coaster, a hot drink, and they're sort of like, every now and then, you're just like, yeah, you sort of... you know, most people slurp a drink, a hot drink.
I don't bloody slurp a drink.
You know, but some people, you know what I mean? And it's sort of there, and just be like, oh yeah, mate, just put a pot. Oh, no, that's it, a pot of tea, because that will sit on the table. A pot.
If you're playing an Alice in Wonderland themed game, though, it's a necessity.
I mean, yeah, but that's a perfect addition. But I think in general, if it's something like that, you know, most of our drinks are bottled, or it's a glass of water, or a can of something. And
I
that's
tell you what,
easy
you know
to
what? I
get
tell you
rid.
what makes a drink a bad drink at a table is when somebody fucking spills it. The amount of money that these books cost. And equipment, and then if somebody spills something on it, it drives me fucking mental. And
It's the instant anger, isn't it? It's just instant triggered.
oh, it's just the fucking worst, because like, especially I've seen people do it at one shots, right? And I've you know spent all this time rolling up characters, making the sheets, putting them on there, maybe buying some minis, bennies, all this shit, buying some snacks, and then suddenly, so the first thing somebody does is like smash a coffee all over the table, and it's like, well, that's all ruined. Thanks for that.
Thanks for
we
that.
have to suddenly dry the fucking sheets with a hairdryer. Fuck. Well, anyway,
No
good
food.
question.
Anyway, yeah, it was a good question.
Thank you very much for sending your question in, and thank you very much for answering the question about making interesting characters. I think you've all smashed it. You know who else is smashing it? Find out in the outro.
My main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
And that last line I said about someone else smashing it, I don't know what even I meant by that. So you found out, but now we're in the outro. Let me tell you something, listeners. We've got products out there. 3TRPG publishing at gmail.com. If you want to support the show and have a product for yourself, that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, go to patreon.com/3TRPG podcast and you can support us. And the thing I said about us having a $10,000 tier, we actually do. So go ahead and support that. You know, I mean, if you've just got 10 grand lying about, just I mean, this is just literally me begging now, isn't it?
10 grand, hello?
Yeah.
No.
Just give me 10 grand. It's all I ask of you. Anyway, yeah, if you want to email us, 3trpgpod@gmail.com. We're also on all the good social medias, Twitter, Facebook, that type of thing. Yeah, you can find us there. But that's it, really, isn't it? That's it, guys.
Yeah. That's it.
All right.
All right then.
Okay, well, I've been Harrison Hunt, and this has been the 3TRPG podcast. What's your name, Nick?
What happened, Nick Lamley?
Yeah, well, I've been James Clark, innit?
Well, remember that 3D20s are cool, but 3T RPG podcast, now that's a good time. See you later, everyone.